Everyone, I would like to call to order the Wednesday, December 6th Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority Board meeting. Susan?
Yes, thank you. We do a roll call. Saba Farah, Bob Gunzel, Marie Clough. Here. Howard Lazarus.
Here.
Jill Lowenstein.
Here.
Darren McKinnon.
Present.
Al McWilliams. John Mohawk.
Here.
Rishi Narayan.
Here.
Keith Orr.
Here.
John Split.
Here.
Phil Weiss.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the board meeting agenda.
So moved.
John? Darren? Thank you. All those in favor say aye of the approval of the board meeting agenda.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Thank you. Item number 3, audience participation. Do we have any member of the public who'd like to speak to us today? Once, twice? No takers, okay. Move on to item number 4, reports from city boards and commissions. You have 4 minutes. Ray Detter, you're up, sir.
Good morning. Last night's December meeting of the Downtown Area CAC was canceled, as it traditionally is in December, with a holiday dinner gathering at my home of about 25 members of the Citizens Advisory Council, also downtown neighbors, and those people were former members of the Citizens Advisory Council, including Joe and Carolyn R. Kerr, who some of you may remember, have been gone for 18 years and now back again in a wonderful loft apartment, 2 stories high, beautifully done, on the alley on Liberty Street. So they were a part of it last night. And as customary, drinks and hors d'oeuvres were combined with discussion of a wide range of current city developments that affect the entire central area. Over dinner then, each of us was given time to talk briefly about our hope for the new year, 2018. Discussion included issues relating to public safety, pedestrian walking streets, changing of one-way to two-way streets, DDA plans for South U, 5th, and Detroit and Huron Street, and we all plan to attend the study meetings on Huron Street. And that's going to generate a lot of interest in a wide range of areas. Also, the tree line came up for discussion, traffic and parking, of course, improving public lighting and roads. Hopes for the 2018 year moving ahead was included, particularly the library lot development. We're hoping that something's going to happen, something that's not bad. Also creating a new railroad terminal. And now, as I mentioned in the last meeting, it's turned more in the direction of depot, in spite of the direction of the discussions that have been occurring in other areas. Perhaps stops at both Depot and Fuller. The future development of the First Martins, Brown Block, and also the 5th and Huron properties, and the importance of thinking about future development of the North Main and DTE sites, the impact of that development on the downtown. City Council approval 7-4 on Monday night of the project at 1140 Broadway was much on people's minds. And we did discuss that also. And we talked about the nature of, the night before, some of us who spoke at that talked about the nature of the public benefits that would come from that project. 620 units of mainly workforce housing. Over $2 million were promised each year, added to the city's tax base, clean up of the contamination on the site. And as the Ann Arbor planning staff recently recognized, the proposed development is in harmony with walkability and transit orientation. The site is located in close proximity to the major employment centers of the University of Michigan Healthcare, sometimes called the medical campus, which had dealt much with the nature of the zoning that was developed for this 1140 site, as well as our city's central business district. Also, it's simply a short bicycle ride to Carytown and also to downtown. And that led us into a general discussion with regard to the whole nature of the downtown, what the downtown is, and the nature of the downtown in relationship to areas that surround the downtown, and how they are connected in terms of the nature of the way in which we want to think about Ann Arbor as a community and the benefits of the community. The downtown's a part of it, and of course the DDA is within certain borderlines, but we all recognize more than we used to recognize the importance of nearby areas. In that area of North Main, Depot Street, DTE, Broadway, and perhaps also Fuller, is very much a part of the future of what we have to think about in terms of downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. I turned the clock off. It's all right. Item number 5 on our agenda. Do we have any communications from DDA members this afternoon? Hearing none. We'll move on to Executive Director Communications. Susan?
Yeah, thank you. First, just an item of business. The back of your board packet are proposed dates for DDA committee and board meetings in 2018. We made a note of at least a couple of them where we're going to have to change the date because it likely isn't going to be a date we're going to want to stay with. But we'll wait till we get into the new year and we'll go ahead and change. Notably, the board meeting is typically the first Wednesday. That would overlap with July 4th, so we'll want to change that. And our September capital improvements meeting overlaps with Yom Kippur. So those are two at least that we'll want to make a note to change.
No one cares about July 4th till nighttime. The daytime, it's fine.
Well, so noted. That makes it easier. The others are just two reports. The first is, some of you may remember 2 years ago, the DDA worked to provide grants, and an important one that was provided was for the marquee at the State Theater. And if you've not seen it, I urge everyone, including those that are watching us at home, to make a point to come down to State and Liberty to see what that marquee looks like. It's absolutely gorgeous. Not to be under and not to be missed is also it's now energy efficient. Those are LED lights, but it's just breathtaking. And kudos to the DDA for helping make that possible. And then the last thing is on the administrative front. I want to make a note that for years, really over years, we repeatedly talked about the need for the DDA to do a better job communicating. And we know that. We're so busy doing that often we forget to share what we're doing with the public. We often don't get credit for what we're doing. And we're not always sure the best ways to get information from people to help us when we weigh decisions. With the help of the city's HR department, we spent time writing a job description, posting it, looking through resumes, doing interviews, and I couldn't be more pleased to announce that we've hired our communication manager for DDA, and it's the perfect person. We will look forward to having Maura Thompson joining us as our communication person. Among the strengths that are unique to Maura that make this a particularly beneficial hire is her knowledge of the small businesses in downtown, is her support for the associations in downtown, and the ability she'll have to weave us in closer with South University, with State Street, with Carytown neighborhood. We're thrilled to have Maura aboard, not only to communicate back downtown, but to expand the work she's doing already to serve as an ombudsman for some of the small businesses downtown. We are very grateful that she'll be joining us sometime in the new year. We've not selected a date. We want to be sure we don't shock anything over at Main Street Association. We want that to go smoothly as well. But I hope you'll join me in welcoming Maura to the DDA. So thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, Susan, and welcome, Maura. Approval of the minutes. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Rishi, thank you. All those in favor of approving the November meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Thank you. Item number 8, subcommittee reports. The Operations Committee, John and Keith.
Okay, the first thing on our agenda is parking rate changes that are being proposed by both the Operations Committee and the Finance Committee, and I'd like to ask Joe up to walk us through those proposed changes.
You can find a summary of those changes on page 21. And the strategies that we followed to get to this were to schedule small annual rate changes versus larger rate changes every few years. Over time, to reduce the differential between paying by permit and paying by the hour. Even out the cost of permits across the system. And to expand the differential between the rate on street versus the rate in the garages to incentivize parking on the street. The largest rates are across the sheet are parking structure hourly. We're keeping it $1.20 throughout the entire plan. The on-street hourly is going up by 10 cents with a rate change. Go from $1.60 up to $2.20 at the end of the rate of the plan. And the structure permits monthly will go from a range of $115 to $165 per month, all the way to $200 per month at $10 and $5 increments across the rate plan. This plan provides DDA in its 10-year plan with funding for all the DDA projects, including the Ann Ashley addition. Any questions?
So can you provide a projection of what this does to revenue, including acknowledging that there are actual and potential losses of spaces?
Yes, we have that. We had provided that to the operations committee. I can give you a copy.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, Marie?
Yeah, when you say structures, you're also talking about the open lots
In
for
what
the
context?
permits.
For permits, yes, they will be going up in the same increments as
As
what the
the
structure
structure.
permits are.
I think it'd also be helpful to send a note to the city advising that this also exacerbates the problem between parking rates and parking fines, and that a prudent course of action would be to take a look at that.
Joe, are these rate changes available on our website? Is this sheet available on the website, or?
On the board packet. It's in the board packet,
Which is on the website, okay. So if somebody wants to reference it, they can, okay. Anything else for Joe? Thank you, Joe.
Just one more addition, just also on the website, and we'll share this as well, is not only the detail, but we have a frequently asked question sheet, which outlines what the logic was that went into the committee discussion around it. And we welcome any feedback on that as well. If it's confusing or there are concerns, this was an attempt to try to help people to give us feedback.
And I'm just thinking it might also be helpful to include, rather than having somebody have to dig through the board packet, it might be helpful to have that, the changes, the proposed changes more clearly available on the website.
Excellent, we'll do that.
Okay, next,
John?
yes, John.
One quick thing. So if it goes through the process without any surprises, would we expect those rate changes to take effect in?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just
Oh,
about
are you
to,
gonna cover
yeah,
that? Okay.
we will get feedback from the public at our January board meeting, and we will not be voting on a resolution to change rates until our February board meeting.
Going into effect in April.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, going into effect in April, and then,
April 1st.
again, the changes become yearly, but at first there are a couple of changes that take place. Eventually, I think they're taking place on July 1st every year. All right. Monthly parking and transportation report is in your packets. It is on page 24 through 27. If there are any questions on that for Jada. Seeing none. The rooftop fencing, the temporary rooftop fencing is now complete. We will be spending some more money this year. We have money left in the budget this year, and we'll be starting to put fencing up around the lower floors where applicable. So we will start to, and I'm assuming this is chain link, coated chain link fence around the lower floors.
Yeah. We're working to get a bid out, and it would be black coated vinyl chain link.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? Parking lot decommission, closings. Republic did a wonderful job of transitioning the brown block lot to the private owner. Both it and the Huron and Fifth lot are currently being operated by the private owner, and will continue to be until the city can review their zoning application. Any questions there? Okay.
I think you toss it to me at this point.
Do I toss it to you at this point? And then, okay, and Ashley expansion is last. Thank you, Keith.
All right, let's see.
The first thing I have is a resolution to approve Nova Consultants to install a solar electric carport at 4th and Catholic. I will move that. It is on page 28. And ask for a second.
Second.
All right, so if we go to page. So just as a quick review, this was, I think we've all talked about this before. There has been discussion about using more of our facilities, whether it's the parking structures for the lots, as a way of collecting solar energy. The city, of course, has done this already at the farmers market. But we decided a couple of things. One, before all of the issues that would be involved with putting it on a one of the structures, that we would try it out on a smaller basis in one of the lots. We put out a bid. The preferred contractor was Nova Consultants, Inc. They provided two different models. One was just an outright purchase, and the other was sort of a hybrid of a purchase and rental. As we talked over the pros and cons of it, it was more than a consensus. I think it was unanimous amongst the committee that that the outright purchase seemed to make a lot more sense. Any questions?
Keith, remind me, the solar, will it power the electric?
Yeah, good point.
Chargers?
And this is one of the reasons that we're piloting something here, is to try and work out some of the details of how that will actually work. As it happens, it would be a much larger project to try and make it a direct powering. So rather than doing batteries and collection and powering, all this is actually doing is feeding back into the DTE, and then we get credit for the electricity which we give to them.
Can't eliminate the middleman.
Right. Yeah, there's, and likely that's what would happen in the structures as well, just because it's, while it certainly is feasible, Tesla's doing a lot with this sort of thing, it is a larger undertaking to make it a direct, to be the electric provider as well as the source of the electricity.
Just to put it in context, you mentioned the farmers market. The city also has solar at, I know, a couple of the parks and rec facilities. There's a big array on top of Miller Manor, Ann Arbor Housing Commission. So Dave Conkle's here. So the city has other installations that's moving forward too.
I think the first one was that light out by, was it Burr Park? One tiny little light.
Maybe for solar electricity. We did a lot of solar.
Tell everybody who you are.
Hi, I'm Dave Conkle. I am here as a consultant to DDA on solar energy at this point in time. I think the first solar projects we did for the city were more solar pool, well, actually solar water heaters at South Industrial at their facility there. Other ones we've done, there's a solar water heater on the main fire station. Right on the roof over there that we did. The first solar electric, I think you're absolutely right, was a lamp post that was donated to the city with batteries at the base, a freestanding way to light roads. It was a great experiment that didn't cost the city any money other than installation. As far as DDA goes, we did do the solar electricity at the farmers market. I consulted with the county and put solar electricity and solar water heating on both their administration building and their other building here in downtown Ann Arbor. And have noticed that there is a big push to get solar energy in Ann Arbor lately.
Any more discussion on the resolution? Okay, shall we vote? All those in favor of the resolution to approve the selection of Nova Consultants to install a solar electric carport at the 4th and Catholic parking lot, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Resolution passes.
Next thing is Ann Ashley expansion. It's over in my section. Do you want to say anything about it?
No, it was originally with me, but it's with you now.
It doesn't matter,
so
we were
go
both
right
there,
ahead.
right? Let's see, so with the Ann Ashley expansion, we did have a presentation of some of the project scope. We'll, of course, be looking at how fencing can be incorporated when we're actually building it, as opposed to putting up chain link fence. And we'll be looking at, though I don't think we've decided on, doing a build out in that the southwest corner, which was designed to have a build out at some point, especially as we look at our First and Ashley project in the next couple of years. That would be something that would help activate the streetscape, because of course parking lots don't activate streetscapes. Let's see, making provisions for new electric vehicle units. So we're looking at recommendations for the design, something because it will make that already kind of imposing structure more imposing. See if there's a way of not just having 3 identical looking floors, but something that will give it more of an architectural component. There's tops, bases, and in-betweens, right? And they all have to be considered. I look at the architect. And also to, while we're at it, change the lights in the garage to LED, which is something whenever we have the opportunity we have been doing, so it seems to make sense to do that. I think those were the main points we covered.
Okay. Any discussion? Questions? Next meeting is?
Oh, one more thing. We have a circulators study. Oh, that's not even on there. But we did, the staff is going to meet with the staff at the RIDE. We're going to look at the potential of piloting something with the circulator during with them. The number 21 is, which I still want to call the 8, it currently goes on 5th, and of course 5th is going to be closed as we do our project, 5th in Detroit. So this will be a chance to look at alternate routes and maybe look at the possibility of piloting the circulator at that point. And that's all I have. Next meeting is Wednesday, December 27th at 11 a.m.
Thanks, Keith. John? Finance Committee. Ms. Klopp?
Let's see, we did our usual reviewing the October expense listings. Since the Finance Committee is working in partnership with the Ops Committee to tackle the parking rates, the Ops already covered, so we're on the same page with that. The only thing I would say is that there's some frequently asked questions in the board packet that we already referenced, but in case anybody wants to take a look at it. The parking rate changes, one of the interesting parts for the finance is that it helps, having it laid out will help patrons understand what's coming, and it also helps the finance committee and the DDA from a budgeting perspective. So it's really, the more information and how having it laid out will be beneficial to both parties, both groups. Our next committee meeting, we are canceling December, so, and given the odd dates in January, the next committee meeting will be Thursday, February 1st at 1 p.m.
Okay, thank you for that. Partnerships, Joan?
Okay, our last partnerships committee meeting was with our outside partners, so we had city council members and someone from the planning commission. It's actually kind of a small group, so we just had a lot of discussion about what recently had taken place with our city DDA work session, and then also the City Human Rights Commission work session. Also, we heard from the Planning Commission a lot about the Glen Street site plan of the hotel there, and even though it's not within the DDA, the issues involving possibly changing one-way to two-way, or two-way to one-way streets, all that kind of stuff that we will eventually have to encounter downtown as well. And so we discussed the resources the DDA could bring to help event planners address increased security requirements. This is something that Howard had brought up, the whole issue of security requirements in for downtown events, and how increasing requirements by the city were stifling some of the smaller groups that wanted to hold events. And so we're going to continue to talk about that, whether there are kind of infrastructure changes within the DDA that might help groups have events. And at the DDA, we've been talking for a long time about encouraging street events in places other than the usual Main Street location. And then we handed out our field guide to parking, our new nifty little pocket-size parking guide.
Keith, quick
Yeah.
question about that. Is there a place that businesses could get large supplies of them? The parking guide?
We'll ask Patty to.
Hi, we designed it to primarily be a digital resource for large quantities. We do have a small number for businesses to have for their own reference, but in terms of being handed out to guests that walk in, we're recommending that people show what we have, reference it at a cashier, and then let everyone know about the digital version.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One thing along those lines, so Patty and I were talking about the possibility of looking at doing a card, you know, a 3.5 by 5 size card that might have kind of the short version of things that maybe, you know, restaurants, retailers could have on counters, that sort of thing. So,
And that would have reference the more detailed.
yeah, potentially. I mean, it's an idea that's out there, so I don't know if other people are interested in that idea, but if you think that's something worth considering, it might be worth giving some feedback to staff and see what folks think, but it might be handy for something, you know, just it's good advertising, you know. Next to a cash register, there's, you know, a small card that gives info.
Because people ask about it all the time.
Yeah, yep. But I think when we have our communications folks coming in, they'll weigh in on things like there's something you mentioned that I want to ask about.
The security stuff?
Oh, shoot. Drat.
Glen Street?
Say it.
Glen Street Hotel
Just go ahead and
stuff?
give the report again.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. All right. Drew a blank.
All right. Well, you can bug Phil about it like 5 minutes from now when you think of it.
Yeah. All right.
So that's pretty much it for my report. Our meeting, next partnerships committee meeting is next Wednesday, the 13th at 9 a.m. and that will be our internal partnerships committee, not with the council people.
I just thought of it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
The chair will have to recognize you.
Well, I, for one, I'm really interested in this notion of festivals and events happening in other places in downtown. One thing that it relates back to is, you know, security measures and all those things. So, you know, I'd be really interested in how those conversations develop and what it means to future streetscape projects and things that we should be thinking about, you know, as we move forward. But personally, I think it sounds like a great.
Yeah, that was the
Great notion.
idea, is to think forward to, as we're doing these streetscape projects, with that, you know, added idea of kind of these security requirements.
Yeah.
Okay, we all set? Partnerships? Thank you, Joan. John, the floor is yours. Capital improvements.
Thanks. Streetscape projects. I think as of last month, we're all tied up with South Hugh, but now we're moving forward with Lincoln First and Ashley. So there'll be a kickoff meeting at the January 24th CIC meeting. So the consultants will be there and we'll start those conversations to get that project started. Fifth in Detroit is out to bid. Bids are due back January 11th. So that will be very, yeah, cross fingers. That'll be very interesting because obviously depending on the results, we can look to adjust budgets moving forward. So that's going to be a key time for us. Huron Street project is where most of the time and energy is going, and as probably is no surprise to anyone, it's a limited right-of-way with a lot of things being demanded of it. A lot of the focus has been up to this point put into looking at traffic, especially for that 10 hours a week of rush hour, which seems to be sort of the driving force for looking at that street and traffic. So at the last meeting, consultants brought, I think, maybe 6 different versions of street layouts. And if you think of what's out there now as being 5 lanes with the idea of 2 in each direction and a center turn lane, they brought traffic study options of 5-lane, 4-lane, 3-lane. It was pretty obvious very quickly that the 3-lane there's just no way it's going to work. It causes too much congestion. What complicates things, though, is you start looking at 4 and 5-lane, is you start looking at left turn lanes, lights for turning left, all those sorts of things. That makes for more scenarios and makes it more complicated. It's the long and the short of it. And there was a lot of conversation about what are all the values we're trying to promote. There's obviously the car traffic. There's the idea of trying to potentially put more transit onto Huron, getting it off of, for instance, Washington. There's also a concern of putting cars from Huron onto Washington or Liberty. So there's a lot of feedback to the vehicles piece, but the other parts that we don't want to lose sight of are pedestrian safety is a priority, and in my mind, looking at it as what really enhances the image of that street. It's being the primary artery through town and a boulevard through town. So a goal early on has been to try to be able to have large trees and to have a buffered area for pedestrians walking along. So there are a lot of things wanting to take up that right of way. So long and the short of it is that my understanding is that at our next meeting, the consultants will be bringing 5-lane, 4-lane options, sort of narrowing it down, including trying to give us some images of how they may look. I think Joan brought up the idea of, okay, when we're looking at trying to do something that's going to transform that street, how does it look? How does it feel? Is an important component of that. So I'm hoping at this next meeting that with that information we're able to give the design team some direction moving forward. My fear, quite honestly, is that if we land up with a 5-lane version very much as we have now, are we just going to be doing some sidewalks and lighting, and where does that really taking us? And so it's possible we might have to rethink the priority of the project, or how we want to approach it. But we'll see at that next meeting, which is December 20th at 11 a.m. And
I think Marie had a question about that.
Yeah.
What if we went under?
Went under.
We got pedestrian under.
Or over.
Well,
like they do in Chicago, right? We
that would be
into the water.
That would be very exciting. Well, to be honest with you,
Give you some affirmation of your question. I'm thankful for that.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, that's what the tree line's looking to do. That's what's looked to be done at the tree line down at the overpass.
Right.
So that's, well, needless to say, I mean, getting people to go under or over, humans are humans, and they like to take the shortest path, and the expense becomes huge and so forth. But it's a very interesting, challenging issue. One of the things we've talked about is, even with the 5-lane version, if you provide a pedestrian island, I asked Susan the other day, to talk to the design team about it, because, my perception is in a 5-lane road, you're going out in the middle of, in a pedestrian aisle, and you feel pretty exposed. If that's where the lights change, the idea is that that's a place of refuge because of the big distance going across 5 lanes. If somebody's slow moving, elderly, not enough time to get across, so the timing of the lights comes into play, which goes back to the traffic. It's a mess, trying to figure all that stuff out. So I think, in my mind, just, looking at it, there are advantages and disadvantages of all these things. And what makes it even more difficult, the design team and Amber, I think, have been working on trying to, come up with almost a scoring system for how to weigh all these factors, but it's kind of impossible. I mean, we all weight things differently, based on our own personal experience and our viewpoints. And I think the design team has a hard time giving us any truly objective, way to score and analyze it. And I think it's been part of the challenge for the committee, is really trying to evaluate these things. And, it almost comes down to your sort of, as best you're perceiving it and how it's going to look and how it's going to function and what your priorities are. Each person can make a pretty darn good argument for some different scenarios, in my mind. So that's kind of where we're at. I think at this meeting is going to be a very critical time for us, really all to really listen to each other closely and, really try to internalize what this thing could look like and function like and what we're really trying to accomplish, and also how it would tie in for future projects. So it's going to be an important meeting. I know it's a tough time of year, December 20th, but I hope folks will be able to make it. Any other questions for me?
First, Ashley.
Yeah, I mentioned that kickoff meeting for first.
That's right.
Put on your calendars First Nationally, January 24th, because that's actually, I think, a move of that calendar date.
Yeah, January has 5 Wednesdays. We're going to take the 4th Wednesday.
What time of day?
11.
That's the same time, yeah.
Same time.
All right, thanks, John. Executive committee, we went over the agenda, we chit-chatted, not much else. It was pretty short and sweet. Anybody have anything to add to that? No? Okay. Any new business folks would like to discuss this afternoon? Hearing none. Anybody from the public like to speak with us? Audience participation, this is your last chance. The DDA's new employee like to address the board? Hearing none. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Keith, so moved. Thank you. All those in favor?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
This could have gone from a short meeting to the longest meeting ever.
Why?